Subwoofers, amplifiers, speakers, and processors, you can use all of these things to get great sound in your vehicle. Now, whether your definition of great sound is earth-shattering bass or really nice, clean sound quality, there's some important mistakes that we need to avoid with our car audio system. Some seem obviously wrong, but others are not so apparent. But guys, we are all in this together. It's all about helping each other out. And after this video, you're going to know 5 important mistakes to avoid when you're new to car audio. Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome to Car Audio Fabrication. I'm Mark, and here on this channel we do car audio reviews and lessons, and we also do build log videos where I actually take you step by step through the whole process of building custom subwoofer box, door pods, that kind of thing. So if you are new here, I would love if you would take the time to check out the rest of the channel. All right guys, let's get into this. Number 1, and I guarantee a lot of guys that know a little bit of something about car audio are already thinking it. Mistake number 1 is using the gain control on an amplifier as a volume knob. Every aftermarket amplifier will have a dial that looks like this, and it's called the gain. Now I'm going to use basic terms here, but the function of the gain control is in order to match the maximum undistorted level of the source unit to the maximum undistorted level of the amplifier. In other words, when we turn up the radio to the max volume, the amplifier is going to be calibrated using this control so that it matches and is also at the max volume at that level. We need the ability to have this calibration because different radios and different source units actually output different voltages at their max volume. The problem here is that people will look at the gain control on the amplifier and they think that it's like a volume knob. They think that if it's only at the 50% position, they think that it's only playing with half the power, but that is not the case. When you turn the gain dial up too high, the amp is going to start to clip. Clipping not only sounds bad, but over time it will definitely damage your speakers and it can even damage your amplifier. Setting the gain incorrectly is easily the #1 cause of broken or blown equipment. So how do we make sure that the gain is set correctly? If you have your system professionally installed, those guys are either going to use an oscilloscope or they're going to use a purpose-built tool to detect distortion in order to set the gain correctly. If you don't have access to these tools, you can also set your gains with a voltmeter. This should be avoided though because it's not as accurate and it can lead to us setting the gain too high and potentially damaging our equipment or not setting it high enough and leaving some performance on the table. Bottom line, make sure that you research the correct way to set your gain control, and if you're having your system professionally installed, don't touch the freaking dial. Don't let your friend touch the dial. Just leave it alone. It's set correctly. So we got that out of the way. Let's move on to mistake number 2, and that is buying subwoofers that are too large for the intended install location. I know. When you're new to car audio, you are just so excited to get that first subwoofer, and you're definitely going to want to outdo your buddy. You got to get a bigger subwoofer, right? No. Here's the deal, buying a smaller subwoofer that's in the proper airspace can far outperform a larger subwoofer that is starved for airspace because the location it's in is far too small. When it comes to selecting a subwoofer size, you have to be realistic about the location that you're installing into. Let's say that you have a truck and you want to install in an underseat location. 15s or 18s just simply are not a good choice. The way to determine what size to buy is to actually take some measurements and determine how much airspace that you have to work with, and then use that value in order to choose a subwoofer and subwoofer size. If you're going to be using a sealed box, this is easy because you just take the length times the width times the height, and you can get an approximate air volume. You of course do have to account for the thickness of the wood material, but again, it just gives you a little bit of a guideline. So as an example for a sealed box, let's say you do the math and you find that you have about 1.5 cubic feet. Well, you can look for a 12-inch subwoofer that has a recommended volume of 1.5 cubic feet. Now, another mistake that I see new people make in this category, a lot of times they'll go online and they'll research their vehicle and they'll find a spec. Let's say that they find that their trunk has 56 cubic feet of airspace in the trunk. They can totally use 56 cubic feet for the subs, right? Not quite. When the manufacturer of the vehicle is determining those specs, they are literally determining the volume. If you were to like fill the trunk with water and use every last cubic inch that was available within that trunk, that's the spec that they're giving you there. When you build a box, you're obviously not going to fill the absolute entire inside of the trunk. You're going to need to leave room for amplifiers and other equipment, or if you want to still use part of the trunk, you're going to have to obviously leave some room for that. Now, if you do want to estimate for something more complicated like a ported enclosure, it's a little bit more complicated than I can explain in this video, but I made a video in the past that you can check out up here. Bottom line, you're going to get better performance by properly selecting subwoofers for the air volume that you have rather than just going as large as possible. Moving on, mistake number 3, and that is using poor quality source music. Now, I'm not talking about the genre of the music, I'm talking about the actual quality of the file as well as the quality of the recording. We live in an age where people want to have basically their entire audio library stored on their device, or they want to stream their music through places like YouTube or other online sources. This leads to music files that are compressed with missing musical information just for the sake of storing more songs on your device or for streaming it more efficiently. Since this compressed music is literally missing information, it's not going to sound as good on your new aftermarket system. Why spend literally thousands of dollars on your system if you're not going to feed it the best source? For good quality music, you should be looking for files that are 320 kilobits per second. If your head unit or radio has the ability to play FLAC, which are lossless audio files, that's even better, but you do have to keep in mind the law of diminishing returns. Basically what I mean by that is FLAC files will sound better than 320 kilobits per second, but it's only going to sound marginally better. In other words, it's really easy to hear the difference from going from 128 kilobits per second to 320 kilobits per second, but not quite as easy to hear those differences from going from something like 320 up to lossless. In fact, speaking of the law of diminishing returns, that reminds me of mistake number 4, and that's using poor quality equipment. We all know there is some really, really expensive, nice equipment out there, but we have to remember the law of diminishing returns. In general, I'm just using this as an example, but going from a product that costs $200 up to $300, we're going to notice much more of a performance increase than if we go from a product that's $1,200 to $1,300. I want to mention this because I'm not telling you guys that you have to go out and spend a ton of money to get decent sound. You can definitely get a really nice audio system in this day and age within your budget. But what I am telling you, my friend, is if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. The main mistake to avoid here has to do with amplifiers. I constantly see people that are new to car audio, they focus on the max wattage output for an amplifier. I'm here to tell you that the max watts that a lot of these companies will advertise, it means literally nothing. In fact, some of these companies, I don't even know how they possibly could advertise that number. Maybe it got struck by lightning and it somehow produced that output. Otherwise, a lot of these amps, they are not even coming close to doing that power output. In order to truly compare amplifiers, I suggest that you look at the watts RMS rating. Now, of course, there are other features on amplifiers that you should definitely consider when you're making comparisons, and that's why I suggest that you do a little bit of research online, check with some different message boards, talk to some people, and get an idea for who the reputable amplifier manufacturers are. Mistake number 5 that new guys make is disregarding the electrical system. You could buy an awesome, super powerful 2,000 watt subwoofer amp, a real nice beefy subwoofer, let's say a 4-channel 1,000 watt amp, really nice wiring, really beautiful install. You can turn it on and it's gonna suck. When you're upgrading with that kind of power, you have to make upgrades to the power system within the vehicle. And even for some smaller vehicles, if you're installing a system that's really not all that powerful, you may even have to install some new electrical upgrades on those vehicles as well. If you don't upgrade your electrical system, you're going to have poor performance, you'll have headlights dimming and potentially other electrical issues within the vehicle, and you can even permanently damage your equipment. So what can you do to to upgrade. The first upgrade that you should consider doing is the Big 3 upgrade, where you basically upgrade some of the wiring under the hood of the vehicle. Next, you should take a look at upgrading the power plant of your vehicle, the alternator. After that, you can upgrade your battery and add an additional battery. And then finally, only after you do those 3 things should you ever consider a capacitor. Will a capacitor help your headlight dimming problem? Probably, but it's like putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. Your system is still going to have issues under the surface that you need to address. Don't forget to select the proper wiring size as well. For a full video about the electrical system and electrical system upgrades, you can check it out up here. So, question of the episode, what mistake do you see car audio newbies making, or what mistake did you make when you were new? Don't be afraid to admit it, we've all been there. If you're new here, I'd love to have you as a subscriber so that you'll be updated when I release future videos. As always, the thanks goes out to John, Brian, Ali, Steve, Jerry, Emmanuel, Truman, James, and Colin, the rest of the Patreon support team. A big thanks to those guys for helping support the making of these videos. Until next time, thank you for watching.